Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Golden Podcast. I am your host, the Golden Scouter, and today with me I have someone that I really wanted to bring on the channel to discuss Sailor Moon. There's actually no one else I would rather have on this channel to discuss Sailor Moon, so everybody say hello to Sailor Dodo, or Dodo Wrestling Fan. But how are you doing today?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. I'm ready to discuss Sailor Moon. It's like my favorite franchise of all time, this favorite anime. It's just an absolutely brilliant series. I'm feeling great. I'm hype. Let's get into this.
Alright, so I would probably say that the first thing we should start out with is just how we got introduced to Sailor Moon, the appeal we find in it, and why we would recommend it to others. So I'll start off. So whenever I was younger, I was a little kid in the 2000s, and whenever I came home from school, there'd be a lineup of, say, Dragon Ball, Gundam, and Sailor Moon. And Sailor Moon was one of those shows I always watched after school. And on the surface, it really does seem like a girly show, but there's actually a lot more to it whenever you break it down. And just, like, one of the big things I liked about it first off is that it has a very Super Sentai Power Rangers vibe, and I loved the Power Rangers whenever I was younger, and so I found it to be right up my alleyway. And just the appeal I find in it is that it's one of those animes that really stands the test of time because of the characters and even some of the animation, even though there is a lot of repetitive animation, because after all that is a trope in the Magical Girl series. But honestly, I would recommend this to just anybody who wants to check out a Magical Girl series. Like, this is the perfect place to start, in my opinion. What about you?
Well, for me, my story is a little bit more funny. I was getting into anime. This is like 2015, 2016. I was starting to like really expand my interest, so JRPG gaming, things like that. So I watched Dragon Ball Z. Yes, I have to admit it. I started with Dragon Ball Z, as terrible as I don't want to admit it. I did. But my mother was trying to get me into other things other than Dragon Ball, and one of her favorite anime series that she watched when she was younger was Sailor Moon. So she would put on Sailor Moon for me. This is the Deke dub, of course. So I was like, ew, this is pretty cringy, you know? Like, what is this? But I noticed I really liked the art style of it anytime that she'd put it on. Like, just the animation, the aesthetic itself. It was resonating with me despite how tacky the writing was because she was watching the bad dub of Sailor Moon. Eventually, my mother and I were at a mall, and I saw a Sailor Moon poster at a store called Spencer's. And this is why I kind of deem this a little bit funny, because I laid eyes upon Sailor Mars, and I was like, that girl is like the most waifu thing I've ever seen in my life. I have to watch this series up to the point of Sailor Mars so I can just say she's waifu. So here I am, literally just ticking away the first couple of episodes like, when is it going to be Sailor Mars time? When's it going to be her? Come on, Sailor Mars, it's time, show up! Then eventually she shows up, and it was wonderful, and then she was waifu as fuck, and eventually, you know, I ended up falling head over heels with the series, because even after she debuted, I just wanted to continue because Sailor Moon gave me that sense of excitement that I get from something that I genuinely enjoy. It's like, what's going to happen next? What monster are these girls going to fight? It's because I started to build personal connections with all of the cast. And that is, in a sense, something that I find very appealing with the series. It's, as you said, it's an anime that stands the test of time. The animation itself, I don't really find anything ugly about it. Like, there's a reason why there's like 100 million aesthetic Sailor Moon Twitter accounts out there. It's just because there's so much beautiful content to take in of this series. And would I recommend it to anybody? It is the best start for the magical girl genre. So start at Sailor Moon, then go to something like Madoka Magica. Things like that. You work your way up, but start at the very top. That's what I'd recommend. And take it from there, and if you like it, you like it. But just don't be that kind of dude that watches 4 episodes of Sailor Moon and is like, nah, not for me. Watch the entire first arc and then you can judge. That's my opinion.
Yes, I totally agree with you, because, I mean, the first time I really was watching this series, probably about half a year ago, just watching this entirely through, I do remember it being kind of a slow start and a little bit cheesy, especially since Sailor Moon takes everything out with the Moon Tiara action. And so it's kind of like, really, these monsters are getting taken out by that weak little attack, but
oh yeah.
If you go on the series, Sailor Moon really does get her arsenal just packed up. And she's really... I mean, the best way to really just say it is that just whenever there is a plot element, like say like she needs to turn someone in from a monster back into a human, she has that rod. I forget exactly what it's called. I think it's like moon escalation or something like that.
Moon healing escalation. You had it.
Yes, okay. But I mean, a lot of people probably tune off the whole monster of the week thing, and I could understand that. But whenever you get past the first, say, 20 episodes or so, that's whenever the story really starts to have, like, this cohesive story, arc by arc. Whereas the first 24 episodes is just laying in the groundwork, having this Monster of the Week thing, really getting you introduced to all the characters, all the Sailor Guardians, seeing what they're all about, and just finding out what they can do, what their powers are. But speaking of the Sailor Guardians, let's talk about our favorite Sailor Guardian.
Yes, I'm definitely gonna love this segment. Who do you think should go first with this one?
You can go first, because you seem very, very enthusiastic about it, man.
I absolutely love Sailor Mars. I love Reihino. I think she's the greatest anime tsundere that ever existed, ever, period. I don't know, she's just so goddamn cute and lovable, and she's just, so beautiful. Just everything that a woman should be, she is. She's tough, she's strong, she's independent, she's beautiful, just, I love her so freaking much, it isn't funny. She's also one of the strongest Sailor Guardians because she can actually fight monsters without even being transformed due to all of her, like, Shrine Maiden spell cards and things like that. She's, like, the toughest one, even outside of being a Sailor Guardian. Then when she turns into a Sailor Guardian, she has all of her fire attacks, like Fire Sword, Burning Mandala, and she even brings archery into the mix when in Super S she turns Super Sailor Mars. She, what's the attack? Flame Sniper. So it's like she's always very entertaining to watch fighting. I just think she's just an entertaining character all around. Like, I just really deeply love her. And like I said, are these characters a little bit troped? Yeah, but the tropes work so flawlessly well in the environment of Sailor Moon that you're going to have a favorite no matter what. Like, you can't watch Sailor Moon and not resonate with at least one character from this cast. And the one that I resonated with the most was the hothead with the heart of gold, Reihino. Easily.
Yeah, for me, it's Sailor Jupiter, and mostly because, honestly, like, whenever she just constantly references the guy who broke her heart, I'm like, aw, I had a girl who broke my heart once. I feel for you, Sailor Jupiter. And I just like that she's, like, she has that spunky attitude, also, without, like, it being totally obnoxious. And even then, like, what you were saying about how Rei is kind of hot-headed, she's hot-headed, but it's not to an obnoxious length. That's what I really like about that. And I really do have an appreciation for all the Sailor Guardians. Like, even though, like, at the beginning of the series, I was just like, wow, I don't remember Usagi being this much of a crybaby. And then later on in the series, it was kind of toned down. And then I was like, that makes sense. Whenever I was younger, I was probably watching, like, R or S on TV.
Yeah.
And by the way, the dub is so weird, because apparently they used to call Usagi Serena.
Serena Tsukino. Yeah, there was like Serena, Darien, Amy, Mizuno, Lita. Freaking Makoto's name was Lita, for crying out loud. The frickin' Haruka was Amara, Michiru was Michelle. They changed so much, and also, like, due to, like, controversy, due to, like, Sailor Neptune and Sailor Uranus being kind of gay, what they did was, they made them cousins, but retained all of the scenes that would still make them gay, so you have gay cousins now. That's so freaking weird it isn't funny. They literally shot themselves in the foot with that, 100%. You just made things worse. So not only are they gay now, they're gay cousins. You had to bring incest into this. Great job, the people that dub it deep. Freaking phenomenal job. Literally changing all of the source material, attack names, you name it, everything. The music, cut out entire episodes due to mature content. It was literally like the most literally shit dub. Like, pretty much in existence. Like, when people say the Dragon Ball Z dub, like, Funimation dub is, like, really bad, it's like, okay, it's not the best thing that ever happened, I'll admit. But, if you want to know a truly, truly terrible dub, 100%, you have to watch the Deke dub of Sailor Moon. because they didn't even finish the series. They didn't. They stopped at Sailor, like a Super S. They didn't do Sailor Stars just now. Just now, like 2018, 2019, Viz is finally properly dubbing the series the way it should be, and we're going to get Sailor Stars probably by 2019. Just now. Jesus.
Yeah, that was quite the rant, man, but I honestly do say that now that Sailor Moon is coming out with this proper dub, I have been purchasing this dub. I actually like it. I've watched it in Japanese and English, and I'm just like, you know, this is actually a dub that's actually done well. And of course that comes with how anime is now, how they don't take so many creative liberties with the script and all that. But, I mean, just moving on to the whole storylines of this story, or just the storylines of Sailor Moon.
In general, yeah.
So, it basically, like I was saying, like we know, it starts off very Monster of the Week. There's that one woman, I forget her name, but she's the leader.
Queen Beryl?
Yeah, Queen Beryl. And she's the leader of all this stuff, and she has that one blonde guy, Jadeite. He has him go and gather energy, and I noticed that all of the enemies gather energy from, like, different ways. Like, one will gather energy from one person, and then another one will gather energy from a whole group. And it just seemed like that the way that the enemies gathered energy always seemed to evolve throughout the series, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it completely does make sense, and that's exactly what happens. It's just for the sake of variation, because, like, literally, if you had the same thing every single week with no variation, yeah, the show would become very repetitive and boring. But that's why I was always so excited to see what monster of the week they'd be fighting, is because the way that the monsters went about everything, their designs, their combat tactics, they'd always be different, and then not to mention the episode storyline in and of itself would always be different enough to get me excited to see what wacky single adventure our characters would get into this time. And then occasionally you'd see brief glimpses of, like, heavy story. So it's like the very start of Sailor Moon's kind of unbalanced, because you don't have very much main story and you have a lot of one-off stories, and this can throw off a lot of people thinking that it's boring. But as you said, as the story progresses, as the episodes progress, the story progresses too. And then eventually, by the end of Sailor Moon, it's just nothing but the story. And the storyline of Sailor Moon, every single arc has a cataclysmically sized big climax. Like, you don't ever expect it, and that was something that caught me off guard royally. Was, spoiler alert for people that haven't seen the series.
Spoilers.
By the way. Spoilers, definitely. You don't expect, like, when, at the very end of the series, when all of our Guardians go to confront Queen Beryl in the North Pole, they all die. Like, brutal deaths, too. And you're not expecting that. And then you have, like, Usagi all alone. You don't expect this to happen. You don't actually expect the show that was so upbeat and happy and slice of lifey to actually do something like this. But it does. And the romance between Tuxedo Mask and Usagi, it's such a beautiful thing to come together. It really is. Because it starts out as this freaking just a dim-witted teenage girl and a cocky college student. That's really what it starts as. They don't really like one another at all, but by the end of the story, they find out they've been lovers for like 2,000 years due to the freaking Silver Millennium and all of that. And that's when Sailor Moon gets super good. The lure of the Silver Millennium. That's when I was like, whoa, there's a lot more to this series than I first anticipated.
Yeah, that's the same thing I thought whenever I watched R, because I had no idea that it was going to be like this whole time travel thing, and Chibiusa being like from the future and all that. So, I mean, there is really, really good story in this series, guys. We really do recommend it if you want to get into the magical girl genre.
Oh, like, I couldn't recommend it any harder. Like I said, it is, like, the best starting point of the magical girl genre 100%. Because, yes, it does get boring, but just endure with some of the things that are boring. You will be rewarded. Just trust us 100% on this.
Yes, you will. Because, I mean, what I was saying before, that Jadeite character, there's not really too much to him, because he's basically, like, the Goldar of the series until Nephrite comes in. And even then, doesn't really have too much of a character motive until he falls in love with a student. And that's where you really find out, like, holy crap, these lackeys that are in the series, like, they actually have personal motives and you can actually sympathize with them. There are other future enemies, like say the couple, like they're just trying to save their planet. Like they're just going along with the wise men. Like it's not that they're doing evil for evil's sake. Like they actually have a good reason for doing what they're doing. And that's what I really love about that.
Yeah, Alien Anne. I remember that. That was the very, very start of Sailor Moon R. And fun fact, that stuff is actually considered filler. I kid you not, the stuff with Alien Anne, the beginning of R, is considered all filler. 100%. And as I was watching R, I was like, really? Are you kidding me? That's filler? But apparently it is. But then the manga version of, like, the ending of Sailor Moon is a little bit different. Just a little bit different. Especially with the Four Kings of Heaven, because their motives actually do make a little bit more sense in the manga, given the fact that, you know Prince Endymion, right? He was the Prince of Earth and all of that, and he had a romance with the girl in the moon, and the romance is forbidden and all of that. It's a true Romeo and Juliet story from 2,000 years ago. But it turns out those four kings that are now serving Queen Beryl served Endymion 2,000 years ago in the era of the Silver Millennium. That you learn that in the manga, so that's something that I really like about Sailor Moon, is the different perspectives and how much there really is to take in from the anime, manga, crystal. There's a lot to take in if you find this genuinely interesting, which of course, frickin' I find it very interesting, so that's something that I always really dug about that. And yeah, the motives just, they're not crap. They're not just, I want to rule the world, and everyone will kneel before me. Well, that's Queen Beryl, to be freaking honest with you. That really is Queen Beryl. But most of the villains, like, that's the big bad guy, they want to rule the world. The underlings always are just, like, controlled in some sense. They're being manipulated. But they're not truly bad people at heart, and that's something that I always really liked. Always did.
Yeah, and you always feel for their deaths, too, whenever it eventually happens, because they always have this dramatic death scene, which are really heartfelt, even for the villains. Like, I remember one of the villains, like, died in his lover's, or in her lover's arms, and she was just like, this is where I want to die in. Like, this is where I want to die. And I was just like, oh man, that's so sweet.
Oh yeah, I like, for me the two ones were like, Masato, Sanjuin, Nephrite, and Naru. That was so sweet from the original Sailor Moon. Then there was Prince Diamond. That one was freaking excellent, just executed before the climax of R. That's the thing with Sailor Moon that I give over a couple of other animes, is that deaths do mean something. Once a character dies, they're pretty much gone. Like, aside from the Sailor Guardians themselves, because they're main characters, we can't really get rid of them. If a villain dies, they're done. And the worst part about it is they always hit sucker punch you right in the heart just before they die to really make you feel about it. So Sailor Moon is a series really good at manipulating my emotions. It really is. Because it's just like, oh, he wasn't bad. Are you kidding me? Oh my god, he's dead now. But he just came out to be good. And like I said, that was like Nephrite 100%, when he was literally doing everything to save Naru from, you know, Queen Beryl and all of her lackeys and things like that. And it was just like the sweetest thing ever to me. That scene will never be forgotten in my mind. Ever.
Yeah, and I think that's whenever we both agree that is the turning point of Sailor Moon, to where it really goes from a good series to a great series.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant after that. 100%.
Yep, and I think you were mentioning earlier about filler and its importance. You want to elaborate about that a little bit?
Filler is quite important in the world of Sailor Moon. Sorry for the voice crack, but Sailor Moon is really important on filler, because I say, like, okay, people are always like, shall I watch Crystal? Shall I read the manga first? And I'm like, it gives you new perspectives, which is always nice, but I strongly believe if you want to grow attachments to the characters and their motives and what they do, watch the 90s anime first. And this all stems from filler, because many people say that, oh yeah, the first half Sailor Moon is boring, and, you know, quite frankly, when you compare it to the rest of the series onward, it pretty much is. However, think about it. This slice of life filler makes you care deeply for the characters. You get to see all the little quirks, you get to know them as, like, the sweet teenage girls that they are, so you really, really feel something when they die. Like, you really feel like something bad happens to them when they fight. You want to see them win. You just want to see them win so they can go back to just being, oh my god, what a cute boy, I'm going to eat that food, oh my god. You just want to see that happen again. So bad. And that's why I think filler is important in Sailor Moon, is because there's none of that in the manga. There's none of that in Crystal. You're missing out a lot of the series, and a lot of the series charms, by just going straight to the manga in Crystal. Now, if you love Sailor Moon like I do, and if you're a pretty hardcore fan, that's what the manga is for. That's what Crystal is for. Because this is giving you the new perspectives of already existing story and already existing characters that you really deeply love. That's my opinion on the filler of Sailor Moon. It's not like filler from, say, something like Dragon Ball, where it's literally just existing to exist, like, let's just say Frieza arc filler. That stuff is pretty frickin' boring, with Goku doing endless training on his way to Namek. That's just boring. Let's just say that flat out. Sailor Moon filler was never boring to me. It was always just expanding on the characters, getting me to love them more. And then by the time the story really kicks in, it was like, it was all worth it. It was kind of like an RPG where we were leveling up, and now we're ready to fight the boss fights later on. That's how I take it.
Yes, I do totally agree with that. It's just the characters are so charming that you really do want to spend this extra time with them, getting to know them better. And they're all so iconic. Like, every single one of those characters, you could point to them and say, that's Sailor Moon, that's Sailor Mercury, that's Sailor Mars. Each character just has that iconic thing to them. They're not forgettable. That's what's so great about this series, is that if you really want a series that is really character-driven and a character piece, this is the series for you. I have to say that hands down.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And like I said, I was a character-driven guy. My thing is, and my standpoint on a series is, let's just say you have the greatest story in the world, and your characters are the worst. What is giving me motives to care about the story if the characters suck? Because my whole point of the story is like, I want to see the characters win in the end. Or, you know, if they die, I want to be sad about it. But if it's just the storyline that's good, I don't have that extra incentive to care. Sailor Moon's storyline, when it actually picks up, very good. And then you also get the filler and the characters that really, really grew on you. So you get a perfect combination of really memorable, awesome, likable, lovable characters that truly stand the test of time, and phenomenal storytelling later on that you don't expect when you're first watching this series, because the first half was dominated by slice of life. But there's a reason why Sailor Moon is pretty much the most iconic shoujo series ever. There's a reason for this, and it's because it is really just that damn good. You just have to bear with it. You just have to give it time. 100%. I'm saying that a lot. 100% is sort of like my thing of the day.
Yeah. I mean, this show does have hundreds of episodes, and that's typically the thing with shows with hundreds of episodes. Like, you usually have to get through at least the first 5, 6, 7. It's even the same thing with Yu Yu Hakusho. Like, you have to get through 5 episodes before it starts getting into the shonen stuff. And with Sailor Moon, you kind of have to get through the first, I would say, 24 episodes or so before you really start getting into the story arcs and just all these cohesive things and the great enemies and all of the great storytelling and why the enemies are doing what they do, like their relationships with one another. It's just, to me, this is just a, like I said before at the beginning of this video, I really loved Power Rangers as a kid, and Sailor Moon is kind of like that in a way. The formula is very much the same. Like, the characters are doing an activity, the enemies are usually looking on that activity and manifest a monster out of that activity, whatever they're doing. Like, they'll, like, somehow look like, they'll be, like, in a beauty parlor, and then they'll have a monster based on, like, beauty products. Another one, like, they'll be eating cupcakes, and then they'll have, like, a monster that's kind of like a cupcake monster. And I don't know, like, I know a lot of people are just like, oh, that's cheesy and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, if you like Power Rangers as a kid, that's another reason to get into Sailor Moon.
Oh yeah. True that. I can't say that anymore. It's just bloody brilliant. You said it perfectly. It's like, personally, I never watched Power Rangers as a kid. I never did, but one thing, it's like I might do like a reverse thing and actually go back and watch like Super Sentai works like Power Rangers because of how much I like Sailor Moon. That's the thing, it's like, as you said, it's very much the same formula. And if you liked Power Rangers as a kid, I guarantee that you're going to get some extent of an enjoyment out of Sailor Moon. And, you know, cheesiness, yes, cheesiness is a thing. But it's also incredibly charming. Incredibly charming. I can't stress that enough.
Incredibly charming.
Yeah, super, super good. So, it's just kind of a perfect thing to get into if you just want to have some fun. That's really the bottom line, is that if you just want to smile, have fun, get to know really lovable characters, Sailor Moon is the series for you. You don't have to take it super seriously or anything like that, because the fans are pretty chill. If you couldn't tell, I don't think we're too intimidating dudes or anything like that, so, and we're kind of like pretty average Sailor Moon fans, so you don't have to pay too attention to any deep details or anything like that. Just stick on an episode, watch it, and enjoy it. That's what I recommend you do with Sailor Moon every now and again. If you just want to break from the Blazing Fist shonen genre, you can just simply tune into some Sailor Moon and enjoy some lighthearted storytelling with fun, goofy characters.
Yes, and usually the monsters are destroyed with one attack, but that's part of the charm, in my opinion, that it's just, you get to see, like, these awesome attacks like Fire Soul, Supreme Thunder, Bubble Spray, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it like I said, it's like Power Rangers in a lot of ways. Like, the filler is very important in Power Rangers if you want to get connected to each Ranger. Same thing with the filler here. If you want to get connected to each Guardian, gotta watch the filler. I mean, sure, you could break down the series and say, like, oh, this episode's important because that's whenever Sailor Moon gets this. This episode's important because that's the introduction to Sailor Mars, and so on. But there's a lot of value in the filler, because in Dragon Ball, like you were saying, whenever you watch filler in Dragon Ball, it hardly ever builds up the characters or anything like that. The only type of Dragon Ball filler I could think of, and yeah, we're going off topic here, but the only thing I could think of is whenever Gohan found that robot, and just Gohan's training in general. That's where filler is beneficial, and it's very much the same thing here in Sailor Moon. All of the filler here builds the characters. Like, the filler doesn't exist just to exist, like, just, like, popcorn shit, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go into really spoiler-heavy territory. So,
alright.
Which ending do you prefer? The ending to Sailor Moon or Sailor Moon R?
Believe it or not, the original Sailor Moon.
I totally agree with that.
Typically, the ending of Sailor Moon R is like regarded as the best, and you know, it does have the thing where like Chibi Uso was loved after all. It's a very Chibi Uso focused ending. And like I said, the expansion and lore in R is very awesome, and I do love R. I cannot stress that enough. But the ending of Sailor Moon is the one that really, really catches me off guard. And it's ridiculously emotional when you first see it. It so is. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I got a lump in my throat. Like, after that fight with Queen Beryl, where they basically launch a freaking spirit bomb to the silver crystal or whatever, everyone dies. Everyone dies. And then Sailor Moon kind of starts on this monologue where it's like, I'll wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning with the curtains brushing in the spring breeze. My mom will tell me I'm gonna be late for school, and it's just, ah, what goes around comes around, because it's just, oh, she's just an innocent freaking teenage girl, but she had to freaking basically kill herself to stop this monster, and it's just, ah, I was never expecting the series to go in that direction, and it's so heart-wrenching. And it's a very bittersweet ending, because the Silver Crystal ends up granting Sailor Moon's dying wish of being able to return to a normal girl again, but at the cost of everybody forgetting everything that happened. I find that so bittersweet, because it's like, yeah, they're alive, but all of the teamwork that they had, that cohesiveness, that friendship that they had, gone. They don't know any of each other again. And I just found that so heartbreaking, and it nearly gave me goosebumps. And that's when I knew that this series was going to have such a strong, lasting effect on me. And I was like, are the other parts going to have endings like this? They all do. Maybe not quite as powerful, but trust me, every ending of Sailor Moon, it's like, whoa. I just have to take a minute. Woo! What did I just witness with that? So it's definitely the original Sailor Moon.
I so totally agree with that, and just to add on to what you were saying, that could have been a wrap-up for the series, but instead we got more. And even though what you were saying about like how everyone forgets what like who they were and all their relationships, they do eventually get that all back. So that's at least something.
Oh yeah. That's the whole point of the quotation marks filler at the start of Sailor Moon R with Alien On. It's all of the Sailor Guardians getting their memories back, being with each other, fighting Beryl, and also upgrading their arsenal because Supreme Thunder Dragon, Fire Soul Bird, Crescent Beam Shower, like they get upgraded attacks. So if you were getting bored of like their arsenal of attacks in Sailor Moon, which to be fair is fair because like I said, each Guardian is using just one singular attack for the entirety of that series, excluding Sailor Moon who has like Moon Tiara Action, Moon Healing Escalation, etc. But as the series progresses, our characters progress. They get more powerful, they get more attacks. It's bloody brilliant, if you ask me, the way that they go about things. Like I said, Sailor Moon reminds me of an RPG, where we start out at, like, level 0, and then by the end we're at level 99, and we have enough to take on the strongest Sailor Guardian in the frickin' galaxy, Sailor Galaxia! We literally have enough to take her on. And she's a beast! She's a complete beast! Like, I'd say, like, she's, like, way stronger than Raditz or something like that. She's, like, so beast. So you start out with these freaking 14-year-old teenage girls laughing and giggling about boys, all the way to saving freaking the entire planet, if not the universe, from this tyrannical Sailor Guardian at the end. It's just so cool to see how the plot lines progress in Sailor Moon. So cool.
Yes, I love the whole escalation of it. By the time you start it, it's a completely different point than whenever you get to the end of each season. But another thing that's kind of random I wanted to bring up about like that whole whenever Usagi does the whole refresh thing, did you ever think it was funny like how like the enemies like yell refresh and then just flail around?
Yes. Oh, they do that. I do remember that. That's not the first time they do that though, because there's like one in Super S. I cannot remember what they say. And also Stars. Even Stars itself, they say something. I cannot remember what it is though off the top of my head because I haven't watched Sailor Moon in like a good 2 months. I've been watching things like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so that's fresher in my mind. But they all have like this really cheesy scream. It's even cheesy in the dub though, like even like the really good Viz dub. But yeah, it is. Like I said, the cheese is lovable. The cheese is likable. It's cringy, but you're smiling while you're cringe. You're not like, oh, that's just terrible. You're like, oh man, do they really do that? But it's all in the spirit of good fun. It really is. But yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the attacks that they do in the show. Even though, like, in the dub, whenever Usagi does scream out the attacks, it can get a little bit grating to the ears. I will have to admit that.
Yeah, Stephanie Sheh herself, she's not a bad voice actress by any means, but there was something more pleasant about Kotono Mitsushi. I'm butchering that pronunciation completely, but I don't know, her English was just kind of more charming than just Moon Healing Escalation! Yes. Like,
yep, that's exactly how it sounds like, guys. Oh, man. But yeah, I'd probably say we've been talking for a while. Do you have any just topics you really want to bring up before we just kind of have our closing statement?
I can't really think of anything other than if we couldn't convince you to start the 90s anime for Sailor Moon, then, well, I don't know. But just please start with the 90s anime of Sailor Moon if you want to get into this series. Do not start with the manga. Do not start with Crystal. Please just start with the original anime. That's like my biggest thing. Is like if you want to get into it, watch the 90s anime and watch the entire first arc and judge from there. That's literally like sort of my statement. That's really all I have to say about the matter.
Alright, and yes guys, I will be providing links to Sailor Dodo's Twitter and YouTube channel in the description, and as well, I'm going to try and find a legal link to where you guys can watch Sailor Moon free and legally. I hope I can find one, but with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.